Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the DashCast. Today's guest is my first Elder mod on the series, SirHadoken.
Hello, hello.
How are you today?
Doing quite alright, how about you?
I'm doing great. You're here, and honestly, I have a lot of fun doing these, I'll be honest. It's just fun to get to know people. Genuinely
Yeah,
something I love
absolutely.
doing. Um, so I guess we'll just get right into the questions, because some of these I think are pretty cool questions, some of them are just kind of lame, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I feel like there's always some lame questions there because that's just how it is. You can't always all the questions can't be interesting. There have to be at least some generic ones like, "Oh, uh, how did you discover GD?" You know?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So, firstly, is there any reason your name is Sir Hadoken? Is there anywhere that came from, or is it just like something you just thought of randomly?
Yeah, this is a really funny story. I actually stole this name from my uncle. Um, so it's technically not mine. He gave me his Minecraft account when I was like I think 11 or 12 because he wanted to play around with Redstone. But really as advanced of a system as he thought it would be, and he didn't really have any interest in the rest of the game, but he already spent $27 on it. So he passed his account down to me, and he really likes Street Fighter like a lot. And
Oh,
so he likes to name his stuff after Street Fighter stuff. So he happened to name his account after a move in Street Fighter. And so I inherited this name, and as someone who, throughout my childhood, I also really enjoyed playing stuff like Street Fighter, all of the Mortal Kombat's, great games. And considering my uncle is really the person in my family that I kind of synergize and relate with the most, even though we're still really significantly different, it kind of still feels like I have a piece of him with me in the identity that I bear now because he lives in Australia. He moved to Australia with his wife that he met over Guild Wars, which is really funny. But yeah, even though he's kind of not really like a part of my like in-person physical life, I still kind of carry that part of him with me, which means something to me because of how much I can relate with him.
honestly, that's actually you weren't kidding when you said that was a funny story. Um,
Yeah.
my name kind of came from a similar thing where my name, well, it wasn't directly stolen from someone. It was heavily inspired by DanTDM, whom I was a major
Yeah.
fan of when I came up with the name. So even though I don't watch Dan anymore, like he's still there. Like he's the reason I made my channel. He's the because my channel started originally a Minecraft channel, and he was the reason for that. Like my first video, if you go back to my first video, which you'll have to go to my old channel for, frickin' you can see that I'm actually using DanTDM skin, kind of. So the story there is that I didn't actually wasn't actually using the skin. What actually happened was my parents did my Minecraft account, but the problem was I couldn't change my skin because of something. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think you had to like change it on the website at the time because the modern launcher wasn't a thing yet, so you couldn't change your skin through the launcher. So, and the problem was I wasn't logged in on the website. So what I ended up doing is I created a texture pack that changed the Steve skin to DanTDM skin. So I would have the DanTDM skin. But the side effects that all Steves would be DanTDM. So if you look in the background of the video, you'll see like 15 separate DanTDMs. It's really funny. But yeah,
That's
it's like,
amazing.
yeah. But essentially it's just like he's always there. Like he's always going to be there because he's the reason my name is this. And he was a major inspiration for me. So it kind of makes sense to have
Yeah.
him there like that. Um, so moving on to another obvious question, which is just, how did you discover Geometry Dash? This is a question I love to ask people because it's always interesting to hear people's stories concerning how they found the game.
Yeah, this is a question that I answered for Icarus as well. Basically, it's not really an interesting story, but I think it's kind of I think it's kind of better that way that it's not interesting because it kind of reflects that really everyone who is wherever they are in the community now, we all kind of found the game in similar ways. For me, I was in I want to say seventh grade, I think, and I was in a history class, I think. And I was always the like the annoying stickler kid that like not only didn't like play games on my school iPad, um, because they issued us like little tablets. They were super outdated, but
Oh, I remember.
they sorry, go ahead.
I remember at my school, they didn't give us tablets. They gave us freaking like, I think it was like Windows 8 laptops, not Windows
Yeah.
10 or 7, Windows 8. Which side note, Windows 8 sucked. I remember not liking it.
Yeah, Windows 8 was not very good. But yeah, I feel like everyone in the US that went to a school that like tried to be cool but wasn't actually cool have memories of, either getting a really outdated, like barely working laptop or a really outdated, barely working iPad. And in my case, it was the latter. But it was still enough to run GD at the time. So I would always like snoop around at whatever people were like doing and like doing on their devices when they weren't supposed to. Sometimes I would like, you know, tap them on the shoulder and be like, this is probably going to be on the test. You should listen for this. Because I was that kind of person, which I look back on negatively because I was like getting into their business. But this one day, one of them was playing GD. He was playing like Stereo Madness or Back on Track or something. And rather than, like advising him to, listen to the teacher, I was like, what is that? I was like super enthralled in whatever was going on. And so he told me what it was. So I went home and I downloaded it. And I pulled up one of the first few levels, and obviously it was like frustrating because I wasn't used to it. But I had accidentally turned the volume on because of like how I was positioned and how I was laying with the tablet. So I accidentally turned it on, and for those few like 8 or 9 seconds, I realized the inputs were like synced with the song, and I realized that was the point of the game. And from that point, I was like obsessed, and that was the beginning of that.
That's funny. I I just like to imagine some like 5-year-old laying on the carpet and then like they just find out they make the discovery that it's synced and like their brain is like their mind is blown. They're like, "Oh my god, I cannot believe it. I can't believe a game has done this."
Yeah, there were neurons firing in my head at that moment because I hadn't really ever seen that happen before. Obviously, it had happened before.
Yeah,
Other games were doing it, but
like
I
Dance
didn't know
Revolution,
that.
like Dance Dance Revolution, and the like those
Yeah,
games did
exactly.
exist. It was just like the first time you'd seen it. Okay. Um, for me, I feel like most people in this community find GD through school. I can't really think of anyone who's found it through YouTube or anything. Like,
Yeah.
for me, um, yeah, it wasn't through a school issued tablet. It was actually because one of my friends from school would bring his own tablet. Like it was his own like the tablet he owned. I remember he was in like this like blue case. Like he had like a blue case around it. Um, and he had a bunch of games in there. One of them was GD. And I distinctly remember one time he was me and my friend, whom still is on there, and his name is Indie Gamer 500 now. But we'll just call him Tyler for the moment because that was his name and he's okay with it. His old name was
Right.
had Taylor in it, but he was like, "Hey, you two, beat Geometrical Dominator for me." I think it was Geometrical Dominator, and I remember is it Geometrical Dominator or Finger Dash? I think it was Geometrical Dominator, and I seem to remember that I got really close to beating it, but died near the very end, and then we continued on for a bit, and then Tyler ended up beating it. And then at that moment, my the friend was like, "You know what, Tyler, you're beating all the levels for me now," or something. But so, yeah, I ended up asking my mom for the game, but the problem was she ended up not getting it for me for like the longest time. So I ended up just pirating it on my tablet. I don't even know how I did it because my parents had freaking parental controls on it, so I couldn't install apps. Yet somehow I figured out a way to bypass it. I have no idea how, but I somehow bypassed it and installed a pirated version of Geometry Dash. Yeah,
Wow.
I
That
guess
takes
that's
skill. It's hard to pirate.
yeah. That tablet's long gone. Water damage. I think I took it in the shower for some reason. I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
but yeah, it's gone. But my old levels are still up somehow. Like even when like the whole serve level purging happened recently, which I'm pretty sure wrapped up reverted. Even then, my first level was still somehow on the servers, even though it's like less than 20 downloads. I have no idea how it's still up, but it's really bad.
Yeah, if you updated it so that it was like version 2 or above, then it stayed.
I might have done that because I still remember it used a DJ Nate song called The Intro, and like the only lyric in the song would be this like robotic voice saying "fuck the intro," and so I just remember I tried to name the level "fuck the intro," but every time I tried to
Oh,
upload it, a hyphen would appear. I'm like, what? Why is there a hyphen? Why is this game so broken? And I
yep.
remember I like would constantly delete the level and re-upload it, trying to get it to say "fuck the intro," and it never would. So who knows? Maybe that's why. I'm not sure, but yeah. Um, Speaking of creating, brilliant segue. What got you into creating? Because you're mainly known as a creator in the community. Was there anything that, in particular, that caused you to start creating?
Honestly, I don't even know if there's really a specific reason. I would like the editor is what kind of drew me to want to get the full version of the game in the first place. Because like when I had gotten it in school, I was still in the light version, and it only went up to Can't Let Go at that point in time. So I was like fresh out of stuff to do with the game relatively quickly. But it was really the idea that I could like arrange objects in whatever way I wanted to kind of shape the game and to play it exactly, like to tailor it to my own vision, so to speak.
Yeah.
Was just it was something that was super like appealing to me. Like I hadn't really played something that had that like that gave you that much freedom to kind of make the game your own. So it was just really just the reason the reason that I got the game in the first place. And obviously, since I hadn't really looked into what the community was making, I thought that the standards for levels were, the first 6 that I had been playing. And it was around the time I got the full version was around an early 1.8. And the standards were not they were absolutely not the first 6 levels. People were making like Dragon Force and all that by that point. Um, so
Oh yeah, 1.8.
yeah,
Wasn't that when Hexagon Force came out, when the dual game mode was added?
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. I joined, I think, in 2.0. The problem is, I don't know if the pirated version of GD I got was just an outdated version that used 2.0 when 2.1 is out, or if it was indeed an updated version, I just got it in very late 2.0. Because I know I got it around, like, I want to say, like, 2013 or 14. Um, so I don't know, um, was it 2013 or 14? I'm not sure. It was some time. I know it was like a year or two prior to me getting Steam, because that's the reason I pirated it, because I didn't have Steam at the time, so I couldn't get it on my computer.
Right.
So I don't know if it was just really late 2.0 or early 2.1. I do remember looking back at that tablet later on when I did have Steam and trying to play like Bloodlust on it and be like, oh, you have to update your app. And I'm like, oh. So it was indeed a 2.0 copy. I just don't know if it was outdated or not. But I do remember not really looking at the uh the online levels. I think I remember playing like stuff like Retray on there prior. It wasn't like anyone told me to, I just like found it.
Mhm.
But I remember just mainly making auto levels for some reason. Like I didn't make extreme demons or anything. I just made auto levels, which is actually what my first level is. My first level was an auto level. Um I remember making like once I even got the PC version, I made an auto level for DanTDM. Doesn't exist anymore, it's long gone, but there's still footage of it in one of my very first GD streams. But that was just my thing. Um I mean I guess we all start somewhere. Um
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, how did it feel when you got your first rated level? Everyone has a big story for like their first rated level. I want to know what yours is.
Oh man, I cried. It was yeah, it was a moment. My first rated level was called Foreshadow. It's a hard 4 level. It was around like early 2.0. There was a point in time where like I was relatively connected in the community in terms of like all the people who didn't have like stuff to their name. And so we would often like make stuff together for fun. And since I was like super dedicated to it, I got myself involved in a whole bunch of projects. And so there was this collab on that we agreed on someone else uploading it. But one of the people in the collab uploaded it themselves. So it was like uploaded by the wrong person, and then that person, since they had gotten a rated level of 1.9 back when it was like impossible to get your first rated level, because like 1.9 was like the same like 15, 20 people on the featured list, and that was like it. Um, since they had, become the rare exception, people had reached out to them. And so, they, after enough time, since they, since it wasn't agreed upon for them to upload the level in the first place, they went ahead and, like, tried to forward some of the other, like, solo projects that other people in the level were working on as a means of, like, making it up to them or whatever. And it didn't actually happen until after 2.0 had come out. And around when 2.0 had come out was when, the mod system started becoming a little bit more public and a little bit more accessible to people who, didn't already have rated levels. So it was, that was kind of they had there was a little bit of a connection there where they were reaching out and, talking about it. And then, these new mods, that were coming into a freshly made public system had something to look for because this person was talking about it. So that it kind of happened that way. And then since I had been releasing so much stuff, I think I got 4 or 5 features within that same like week. But the first one was Foreshadow, and that was like that was catharsis. It was a moment. I didn't record it, but I did, and I did cry. It was it was a lot.
For me, I just remember I'm gonna tell you 2 stories. The first one, back when I first started critting on like my actual account on GD, because my first level was not made on my account. I didn't even have an account at the time. Like, I don't know why I didn't make an account. I guess I just didn't know that was a thing. In fact, I don't even know how the hell I found my first rated level. Like, I still have it somehow. It was, like, I found it somehow. I don't know how, but it's still up. But, I didn't know accounts existed until I got the Steam version, in which case I made an account. I remember when I first started making levels, I didn't know what it meant to have a raid level. I didn't know having a raid level meant you got stars. I thought it just meant having the face on your next to your level. So one of my first levels named Challenger got like got the harder face, and I like freaked out because I thought it was rated. So I even uploaded a video on my channel titled Challenger, my first rated level or something like that. And it wasn't until the comments corrected me and told me you have to get stars in your level for it to be rated that I realized, and I was like, oh. My actual first raid level came this year, actually, a couple months ago. I remember I for some reason decided to make a pixel styled level using Panda Dance as a song, and I named it Pixel Party. And I still remember one of the main reasons I got raid is because Crit, if you know Crit, Krit,
Yeah.
I don't know how he found it, but he just found the level on Twitter, and he gave me some feedback, and I ended up implementing it into the level before I released it. And so when I released it, I ended up telling him on Discord, and he actually sent it. So later that day, because I released it like an hour before I went to go eat. So I went to go eat. I made oatmeal for dinner. I sat down at my dinner table to start eating. I was like, I want to check my comments on my level. So I pulled up Geometry on my phone, and I went to my levels, and I got I got a quest for collecting orbs. And I'm like, what? And I look at my levels, and I see a yellow circle around Pixel Party, and I'm like, oh my god. But the problem is I couldn't really celebrate because my parents were watching TV literally like not even like 5 feet away from me, because the dining room was right next to the living room where my parents were watching TV, so I couldn't really like celebrate or anything. So internally I'm freaking out, but externally I'm like, okay, I can't really do anything because I don't want to interrupt them, but I am really happy. And I remember like I think I must have been really lucky because no one had told me that I got rated level until after I figured it out. So I must have like caught it right when it got rated. So that was insane. I remember like having so many DMs people, being like, congratulations. I just felt really happy because I really wanted a rated level and I finally got it. So yeah, that was really awesome. Um, getting a raid level, honestly, I feel like it's gonna get kind of hard of 2.2. I don't, just with all the stuff being added, especially with like the
Yeah.
camera controls and especially the particle system. Like, I am really nervous about the particle system and the camera triggers in particular because I don't know. I just feel like that's gonna make it a lot harder to get a raid level because there's gonna be so much more you have to keep in mind. They have to account for when you're making it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel really bad for anyone who goes into 2.2 with the intent to learn the editor for the first time, because they're like even 2.1 there is
Yeah,
so much stuff that you can just flat out like you could honestly get a rated level and only know like 50% of what the editor can actually do. Like
like
it's crazy.
for the longest time, I did not know that you could select using a specific thing. Like you could select a specific thing and make it so that
Yeah.
you only could select the thing. I didn't know that until I was beating like these 9 circles levels, and I was like, "Oh, what the hell? Why isn't this working?" Because I was trying to select things and it wasn't letting me because I had the filter on unknowingly. And it wasn't until later I figured it out. But like, there's just so much. Like even now, like you can't even like back in the day, you could make like a Rob Top styled level, and if it was good enough, it could get rated. Nowadays, no, that's you just can't do that. That's just it's not gonna get rated unless you're like Lemons or something. It's just not gonna happen. So you have to like do all these different styles, like like modern style and low style, and you can even like make like a different creator, and it's weird. So much more
Mhm.
complicated than how it was back in the day. I assume, anyways. I wasn't around yet, but I have heard about the old community. Yeah. How would you say you felt when you got mod? Because there's all these clips of people who get mod and they start freaking out on stream. Um, did you have a story like that? Like, did you find out through GD, or were you told, or yeah?
Um, it's that yeah, there's a little bit of a funny story. I'm not entirely sure how much of it I'm allowed to share.
Uh,
But I didn't know about it before like it happened in game. It wasn't like a surprise. But it was very much it wasn't a surprise that it happened, but it was a surprise in the sense that I didn't really feel like I did enough for it. I was part of the if you remember the helper system back in like 2017. It got discontinued, but
what
at
was
the
that
time,
actually? Oh,
so there used to be an not necessarily an official, but like there used to be a somewhat implemented helper system where people could basically like I still don't really agree with the way that it was set up, and there's like a reason why it was discontinued, but like there were so you obviously have mods, and this was at a time before the mod system was like
widely known.
before it made well not necessarily widely known. People knew that it was public, but it was hard to reach out to mods because there wasn't really a public platform for them yet, and that was something that we pushed for in the past few years for there to be like a server for it. That's what the GDS was originally like a server for people to go in public and request stuff to all of the mods in the server at a time. It was like a big level request hub until that eventually kind of died out and it just became the general like official platform for the community on Discord. Just period. But there was this helper system where the mods kind of welcomed a few specific select people to regularly suggest stuff to them to send to Rob, which is like super convoluted. But it was to make sure that the people that they were bringing in, they were kind of reviewing their standards, and they knew that they could count on those people to consistently send stuff that was in tandem with their own standards, because if you kind of extend that offer to just anyone, sometimes they send you things that you wouldn't necessarily consider sending. So that was kind of like a filtration method, I guess. I still thought
Dumb.
it was a little bit flawed because
I can
people
see
could
why.
like
I can see why.
yeah,
Because
people
seriously,
would
like, what's the problem if they send something you don't like? What's the worst thing that's happened is that you just say, "Oh, I don't think this is send worthy," and that's it. Like,
yeah.
what's wrong with that? Like,
Yeah, I think that there was I don't know if it was really people might have been a little bit not fully secure about putting their foot down and saying that.
That's fair.
And since people in the helper system were they wanted to be helpers so they could eventually prove themselves to be worthy of being mod. They were willing to put forth a lot of effort and giving feedback consistently and just openly saying if they wouldn't send something because they felt like helpers had less to lose or something. I don't really know because I wasn't super in on how it worked back then. I was just kind of one of the, not necessarily like the, I don't really know what the right word for it was. But I was just one of the people that they kind of brought in. I don't really know why, because even though like I streamed a lot, there wasn't really a whole lot of like giving feedback and reviewing and taking requests that I was doing. It just kind of happened that I had played stuff on Steam every once in a while, and I had given on stream, not Steam.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And I had given some insight into, because most of my streams were like creating. And so I would give some insight as to like the reasons behind what it was that I was building live, and I guess that was kind of seen as a valuable thing for a mod at that point in time. And there was also this like not necessarily fake helper system, but there was like another person who was like luring people in to be helpers even though they weren't helpers. And I was like part of that, and so I think that was like an alert that maybe I could potentially be a candidate for the actual helper system. It was a super convoluted like mess, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I can
like
tell.
exactly if I can say anything more than that. But 15-year-olds don't know how to how to operate a system like that very functionally. So it's not really like a surprise that it was a convoluted mess. But
Yeah. I
a
will
lot of us
say,
that
I
yeah.
will say that sounds sort of like web nowadays, where people were like, I know there's some people who will stream like, oh, level requests, sending levels to mods, or they're like, pick out the levels they like the most and send them to a mod to review, and then the mod will send it to RobTop, which I personally find, I don't know, because I've done it before, but the problem is I just feel bad doing it because I'm like, I don't want to spam a mod, messaging, be like, oh hey, I did a stream where I found a bunch of levels. Here you go, and send like a million IDs. Like I just feel bad doing that. Like I feel like I could, easily, like I feel like I could easily like tell the difference between like a rate worthy level and a not rate worthy level. I just feel bad, going into a random mod's, message. Like even if they say they're fine with it, I still feel bad. It's just, I might just be because just I'm always worrying that like they'll be like, this guy again. Fine, I'll look at your levels.
Yeah,
So
well, I can understand that. I had a little bit of insecurity about that as well, which is why I think we realized collectively that like that wasn't necessarily a viable method of, fully getting an unbiased view of who would qualify for mod because we were only getting the people who,
we're
like
confident.
yeah, yeah, and there's kind of a personal courtesy that you have with people where you don't, maybe you don't want to bother them with that stuff. And we realized that you don't really need to reach out to a mod about that. If you like YouTube as a platform, there are a whole bunch of ways that you can go about giving feedback on something independently without, having to rely on, a mod to forward it through the rest of the way through the system. And we generally have eyes, everywhere for that kind of stuff. And we're looking out for people who give really good feedback anyway. So people can, go about it however they feel like they should go about it. And that was kind of a part of the system that kind of developed over time that really it's kind of like an ever-evolving method of seeking out people who, are good at, connecting with the rest of the community, good at, giving positive and negative feedback on something, so that for the sake of framing it for the creator, so that they can use it to
Yeah.
improve their work.
So essentially
Just
not just saying, oh, your level sucks, but but instead saying, I don't think your level's very good because I don't like how these colors, clash, and I think you shouldn't have changed styles here, and I think, the gameplay doesn't work very well, but I do like this, like stuff like that, like
yeah,
positive,
exactly.
like
And that
not criticism, but more critique. Critique is more what you're looking for. Someone who can actually give them feedback that they can use to improve upon themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what we've always been looking for, but now I think we look for it in more places because like back then it used to just be, DM requests, and then before that it used to be, now we're looking at like YouTube videos and stuff, and in 2017 it was, the helper system. We would reach out to people that we think would be good at it, and then, they would come in and they would do it, and that kind of, that didn't work, obviously. So we had to find the new method. And that kind of led to the helper system being ultimately discontinued. And now, because it's a little bit pretentious to like give someone the helper title, because anyone should really be able to reach out to a mod and express their opinion on stuff. And so that was something that we eventually realized, and we were like, man, we really got to stop doing this. But yeah, so it's an ever evolving method of, looking for criteria. But at the time, that was the method. And so as, someone who was part of the helper system, that is eventually how I got promoted onward.
Yeah.
And that was just how it worked at the time. Obviously it's different now. For thankfully it's different now. But yeah, it wasn't really, I was surprised because I didn't feel like I did enough, but I was
not surprised.
I wasn't surprised that, because that was just how the helper system was intended to work.
Essentially, you're like half surprised. You like weren't expecting it, but you kind of were expecting it. You're like, I wasn't expecting it to happen now, but honestly, that was gonna happen eventually, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I, put forth enough,
effort,
work to do it right, then yeah. It's not something that I was like, it was a possibility in the future, but it wasn't something that I was like expecting.
Yeah. I know for me, I wanted to say the helper system, not being able to contact mods very easily kind of, I feel like might have, fed into the whole worshipping of mods that used to exist. Nowadays, people just hate mods and GS for some reason, and I honestly don't know why. But like, I know back then people used to like, whenever like a mod would appear in someone's stream or like you'd get contact one, they'd be like, oh my god, it's a mod, oh my god, because it's just really hard to contact them. Nowadays, I feel like it's the exact opposite, which I don't think is right either. Neither way is right. Like, you shouldn't treat them like gods, but you also shouldn't treat them like absolute pieces of trash. Like, while they aren't gods, they aren't pieces of trash, obviously. Like, they're probably the most trusted people in the community because they're trusted by RobTop to help rate levels. So, like, just some respect should be given, but not so much respect to the point where you're treating them like a god. And I feel like the helper system might have fed into that a bit because of how hard it was to, contact mods back then.
Yeah, and I think we eventually realized that. I think that there was kind of when the people who were a part of the helper system ended up getting promoted, I think that we had a little bit of an initiative because of the perspective that we had of the community. A lot of the mods prior to that had been making levels since like 1.6, 1.7. So they were part of a community where you could reach out to the developer on Touch Arcade to advertise your level. Yeah. So what they saw of the community and the community they were used to and made a name for themselves in was a lot different from how it was in 1.9, where you couldn't reach out to the developer anywhere anymore, and he kind of had to rely on these other people in the community to be able to organize that for him.
Which is why mods existed.
Yeah, that's kind of how the mod system came into fruition, and the people who like the newer mods who were being brought into the system realized that there was a gap between mods and the rest of the community that really didn't need to be there. So I think that as more and more mods got promoted, there were more and more of us who were kind of pushing for, the direction of bridging the gap between, mods and the rest of the community. Yeah. And I think that the official server was a huge step towards making that happen. And now that it has happened, it's a lot closer to where we would ideally want it to be. But yeah, I mean, people are going to be how they're going to be. If they, if they don't like mods, then that's fine. We can't force them to. But we do, ask that people understand that we're human beings. We can't be perfect. But we do what we do because we want to do it and we care. So as long as people, understand that and understand that we're not going to be, we're not going to be perfect at it, but we're willing to give it the effort. it's kind of what we're pushing for.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is what it is, and we can't force people to do that. So we're if this is if the current state is how it's going to be for the rest of the time, we're not going to complain.
Yeah. We could probably talk about that for like forever, but eventually we have to move on.
Right? Yeah. Sorry.
So I brought up how it felt to get mod. How did it feel getting Elder mod? Because I know that Elder mod, um, is like considered like there's normal players, then there's like the community figureheads who like are known in the community but aren't mods. So someone like Husey or Colin or like people like that, and then you have the actual mods, and then you have the Elder mods, then you have RobTop. So how did it feel
Right.
when you got Elder mod? Did you like feel like you deserved it, or was it a shock, or how was it?
Um, it's kind of it's kind of hard to say for sure because like at that point, um, Elder mods didn't like exist when I was when I was originally promoted a mod. But I had been kind of spending a lot of time in the daily chat, which had been a completely
Oh
user
no.
created feature. Which I thought it was so cool because seeing the people of the community who aren't what you would initially think of when you think of like change happening and like stuff being added to the game. This was like a totally user-driven like chat room. I thought that was awesome. So like I tried to spend time in it and interact with people, see what was going on, see how they liked it. Because if I could forward that suggestion to Rob for there to actually be a venue for this, then that would be an impact that the community had on the game directly by making it themselves. And we quickly realized that it really only takes one or two people to make the experience significantly more chaotic than it needed to be.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say.
we we had to reach out about that, and there was a concern there because the game is directed towards people 4 and older. And when you are 4 years old, and you are getting a game that looks like it's targeted to your audience, you shouldn't have to worry about things in comments that are not appropriate for 4-year-olds. So that was kind of there was a
Oh,
concern that
wait.
the
I can guess. So is that what led to the parental controls being added? Because I know those make it so you can only play like rated levels, and I think it removes comments. Is that what led to that?
I guess in part, I don't really remember when parental controls were implemented, but there was definitely a concern about, people making inappropriate content in levels themselves and in comments. So we kind of the Elder mod was created kind of out of necessity for there to be some form of, overseer over that commenting process to make sure that it wasn't getting out of hand. So it was kind of a way to meet the community in the middle, and be like, you can still have this thing that you guys made, and you don't have to worry about it getting too out of hand. But then we don't have to worry about what you've made getting so far out of hand that it causes the age limit to be raised. So it was kind of like a compromise. And so I was like the sixth the Elder mod, I think, the first one that was promoted after the original 5, which were Viperin, Skitten, Felix Ram, Rustem, and Burku. Those were the first 5 in no particular order. It all happened at the same time. And then I came right after them. And I guess for me, it wasn't really something that I really thought about as like an achievement or like a promotion or really anything. It was just kind of something that was like it felt like I was being given the ability to do something that I was already like
Able
in
to
the
do?
having spent time in the daily chat. It was already something that I was like like thinking about that I like had as a concern. So it was kind of just enabling something that I had already saw a need for and wanted to contribute to. So it was less of a like an achievement and an accomplishment, and more of just something that we realized was a necessity, and then just kind of brought people on to be able to actually do the job. So it was kind of it was definitely different. It didn't really feel like anything had changed because it was just something that was being entrusted to certain people on the mod team to be able to make sure was in check.
All right. So this is something I feel like a lot of people are curious because getting mod or even just evolving as a creator can really change how you view creating. So I want to know how your view on creating has changed over the years as you've played the game, even as like you've gotten mod and elder mod and been in the community for so long.
Yeah, that's actually a fascinating question because I think it's I don't necessarily know if getting mod and having experience as a mod has impacted it as much as starting playing this game when I was 13, 14 years old, and continuing to be someone who at least semi-frequently builds stuff as a 19, almost 20-year-old. I've kind of grown up with the creating process, and so my kind of perspective of it has changed quite a lot. I was super. I think it's kind of something that I wouldn't be alone in saying that as a 13, 14-year-old, I was really I sought validation from other people a lot. I wasn't really secure with my own personal identity because I didn't really have that built yet. I was still kind of like an echo chamber of the environment that I was in.
I mean, to be fair,
And so
who isn't like that? I mean, like I feel like most people who around that time are like that. Like, even me right now, even currently, I would say I'm like that right now. Because it's just, especially with how this community is, it feels like you need validation in order to at least just be listened to in this community, especially nowadays. Although I feel like that's more just because of how society is currently and not so much a community issue because society itself has changed and nowadays it just feels like you need something, just something that people can look at and be like, oh, you did this? Okay, I respect you, I'll listen to you. But if you don't have that, it's kind of rare for people, especially on the internet, to really like care about what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah, I think that the introduction of the internet was actually something in general that really propagated that. Like, all forms of social media where, the people who are posting the pictures that get the most likes are, the people who get listened to. And they end up becoming, like the influencers. I'm making air quotes, but you can't see them. And so I think that kind of, there was a culture that was created in society at large of, giving power to the people who have the most following. And that was kind of, it's something that, as the first generation of children who grew up in that culture, we kind of have it, even if it's just a subconscious little thing in the back of our minds, it's still there because it is a part of the world that raised us. And so I think it's a normal thing for that to happen, especially when you're 13, 14 and just getting introduced to the internet. Which now people are getting introduced to the internet at way younger ages. But that was something that I didn't want to admit to myself that I did crave, but I did. So I tried to shape what I was doing for that purpose. And as I kind of got further along with it, it became
less of
I did kind of
it became
yeah.
less it became less of a need for validation and more so of a just I just want to create.
Sort of. I convinced myself that it was because I just wanted to create from that point forward, but I still didn't know what my reason for creating was. And just saying I just want to create wasn't really enough because it was still saying I just want to create for other
Something.
people. And by saying for other people, I was still imposing that standard on myself of I want to make something that, impresses people or that people can enjoy and give them something at whatever cost I need to do. And that was still an unhealthy mindset because I was still tailoring everything that I was doing in the editor towards making sure, other people were happy, even if I wasn't happy with it myself. So then that kind of carried through a lot of what I was making, and only really relatively recently. I say relatively recently because I haven't released very many levels since this change happened. But it's been a few years now. I kind of came to
Oh
this
no.
realization that like I should be building to like realize and actualize my own like artistic needs. It's something that I should be doing, one, to have fun, but two, it shouldn't really be something that should be influenced very much by other people's expectations and standards, because other people's expectations and standards are the basis of the whole concept of conformity. And when we have conformity, we end up having the same level over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of as a mod seeing the same level over and over and over again. Not to say that everyone built the same level over and over again, because there were some highlights all throughout.
I get what you mean.
But I
Like, you mean like stuff like back in 1.9, everyone would make. I forgot exactly who it was, but like there's just one style everyone would use back in 1.9. There's also like everyone
yeah
making their own 9 circles levels. In 2.0, there's the generic style. 2.1, there's been like 15 separate styles everyone uses. There was, a lot of people make modern style. A lot of people made, what I like to call generic style 2.0, which is essentially like the generic style from 2.0. Essentially, it was like the generic style from 2.0,
yeah
but
I
made
get
in
what you mean.
2.1 and better. Better in air quotes, because I still don't like generic style. It just looks empty and just looks effortless in terms of they just feels like they didn't put much effort to it. But I can see what you mean. People just make a lot of the same stuff, not because, oh, it's cool, but it's mainly because, okay, some of them make it because it's cool, but most people, I think, make it because, oh, you see, it's easy CP. Therefore, if I make this, I will get CP.
Yeah, and I mean, in some cases, I don't even know if it's as much about CP as it is like, obviously we've seen that convention, all throughout the game's history with people, mimicking Darnock style to, 1.9 to, people mimicking Adiel style to people mimicking Felix Ram style. Like it's all over the place. And it kind of, I don't necessarily know if it's about like accomplishing something or getting, rated levels for everyone as much as it is about like this is the path of least resistance that I need to take in order to get that validation. And a lot of people are at that age in their lives where it's a normal thing to, see the need to seek validation as something that they should, value. And I think as, growing up and then as being a mod, seeing other people falling into the same pitfalls that I fell into when I was just starting out, I kind of realized that there's such a cyclical, self-destructive, like nature of that in concerns with like creativity and the boundlessness of your own imagination. And so I reached a point where I think it was around when I released or when I started working on Conk, where I was like, I don't care anymore, because I had killed project after project after project after project after I have 4 minutes of unreleased fully decorated levels. Like if you put all of the fully decorated parts that I've made back to back to back to back, I have 4 minutes of footage. And I just never I never bothered continuing with any of it, because I was like, people aren't going to like this. People aren't going to like this. This doesn't meet my expectations of what I think I should be able to do. This is going to let people down. And it's all of these different little thoughts of, validation, 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 whether from yourself or from others. I just got frustrated with it. And so now building to me is just, a reflection of whatever it is that you're thinking, whatever it is that you're enjoying, whatever it is that you're feeling. Something that you do for the sake of having fun, something that you do for the sake of, challenging yourself, something that you do for the sake of trying out an idea that you had when you were on the verge of falling asleep last night. Like, it's just another form of art, just like anything else. And I think that, growing up with the creative process and, seeing other people grow up with the creative process as a mod have both played a role in shaping how that perspective has changed over the years.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. Honestly, I can see all three of those. It kind of, like, I don't know how to explain in words, but the progression you explain, having, starting off just wanting validation to telling yourself you're not doing validation when you technically are, to finally getting over it. Kind of, it has like a nice little story arc to it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the, like the character's arc of like a movie. It's like they're like the validation is like the negative thing. Like they spend the entire movie trying to end it, and then at the end they finally get over it and, move away from it. Um,
Yeah.
So I brought up the creating changing. How has your view on being a mod changed over time, if it has at all?
Um, I think the since the standards of what a mod is meant to be and meant to do have changed over the years, I think my view has kind of changed with that. I originally just kind of saw it as like, the people who, rob trusts to tell him what to rate because he can't do all of it himself anymore because of how big his community has gotten. And that was originally just like, oh yeah, we are still, regular community members that just, happen to serve this purpose of helping the developer with this because that's what he trusts us to do. But then as it kind of progressed and moved on a little bit, it kind of became more of, oh, well, in order to continue being a mod, you have to like be a good public representation of the community and of the game itself. And you have to have a good connection with the rest of the community so that when you do get promoted, you have it's not like, oh great, that person got promoted, I have no idea who they are and I have no idea how to contact them. Like we don't want that to happen. So there's a whole bunch of like, oh, you have to be present in the community to the extent that people know how to reach you. People know like not necessarily like you have a name for yourself, but you're well connected
Like,
enough in the community that a decent amount of people would be like, "Oh yeah, I know that person.
yeah,
Good for
exactly.
them."
Like, so,
You know what
like,
I mean? And they would know how to reach out.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I was about to say, it's just someone like, you don't have to be like on the level of someone like, again, like Husey or Olin or Juniper, where you're like, oh, 100,000 on, Twitter, not Twitter, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, or like a million followers on Twitter. You just have to be like at least somewhat known. Like, even if you don't have like the biggest like subscriber base or follower base, as long as people know who you are, well, hopefully in a positive way. I would assume you wouldn't want people to know them for a negative way. As long as they're known, and as long as they would do a good job as a mod, then that's just what you're looking for.
It isn't even just about being known. It's more of like
Somewhat.
because like we wouldn't necessarily like want I wouldn't necessarily want someone to be a mod who has like 200,000 subscribers on YouTube if they don't communicate with them and they don't have any community presence. Like if they participate in the community and they reach out to those people who are
Yeah, that's
subscribed to them and they make sure that they're a part of the experience and they make sure they hear them out. That's more what I would look for, and what I think all of us really look for when it comes to considering new mods is like, do they communicate? Do they have that sort of relationship with the rest of the community? It isn't necessarily about being known. It's about having a communication based relationship with a lot of those different people
yeah.
so that they can reach out to them and that they can they have a group of people who they reach a demographic of the community that maybe we are struggling to reach ourselves. And language comes into that as well, because the community speaks more than just English, and having all solely English speaking mods completely cuts out that demographic as well.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of being able to speak multiple languages is a more valued factor now than it was back in 1.9. And there's just ways that we can reach the community and communicate with the community more, and to a substantially more degree, by bringing them onto the team as opposed to leaving them out of the team. I think that's kind of that's kind of really the only way that my view of being a mod has changed, in the sense that there are all these other little qualities that we realize that mods can bring to the table as official representatives of the game, that we demand a little bit more of them as a whole community now than we used to, but it's also for good reason, because with how much bigger the community is getting, it you need more of those
Yeah.
diverse skill sets in order to, like, one, I guess, stand out as a candidate, but two, to like be able to keep up with what has been expected of mods over the years as the whole idea of the position has changed and evolved.
Yeah. Um. So we've talked a bit about being a mod. We've talked about your first level, your first raid level. Are there any levels that you've made that you'd say you're the most proud of? And would you say there are any levels you've made that you'd say you really don't like? Because I know I personally have at least one level that I really wish that I just really hate. Not so much I wish I never made it kind of thing. It's more so of a just I really don't like this level kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's as for the one that I'd say I'm the most proud of, it probably like since I mentioned it before, it probably has to be Conk, just because that was kind of the breakout point where I realized that, other people's standards and really my own standards of myself were just kind of a roadblock as opposed to something that was actually helping. And so that was kind of it was more of the statement that it made of, I'm making it and I'm releasing it no matter whether you like it or not. And I intentionally made it to be a really horrible experience, like a practically unplayable experience, to make the statement of I'm doing it because I want to and because I have fun with it and not for any other reason, not for any validation from anyone else, not for validation from myself. So figuratively, that level means something to me, and that's why I'm probably the most proud of that one. I dislike most of the levels I've released.
Really?
Almost all of them, most of them that I've released. It's a substantial amount. I guess it's kind of just because most of the levels that I've made have been made with that mindset of building them for other people.
Oh, okay, that makes
Um,
sense.
and so when I see, most of the stuff that I made, I don't see something that I made for the
Yourself.
sake of making myself happy and, for the sake of, doing what it was that I wanted to do.
So wait,
And so
I think I found a very good way to explain it. So essentially, it's sort of like how some YouTubers they will get burnt out and they'll start making videos not because they want to make the video, but because they know people will like the video. So like they'll start making like videos on
yeah.
specific topics, not because they're interested in the topic or because they want to make a video on that topic. It's just because, oh, people want to see that. People will click on it and they get up, they aren't proud of it because that's not what they want to make.
Yeah, I think that that's something that a lot of content creators and really artists of any medium have to battle with on a pretty much constant basis because, like, as kind of a, I don't really want to throw the term entertainer on the whole thing, but as entertainers or the closest thing to entertainers as our community gets, you kind of feel you kind of develop the idea that you have this obligation to please the people that got you where you are. And as I tried to stay really true to that whole idea of, I'm not going to forget those people. I'm going to do everything for those people and I'm going to make sure it's worth their while. And that mindset of, dedicating that much of, my process to those people. Not that you can't dedicate your process to those people because you should be appreciative of those people, but it shouldn't be to the extent that you sacrifice your own,
Well-being, correct.
well-being. Yeah. And so it's you kind of fall into this debilitating trap of where you're making stuff because you think that other people will enjoy it, even if you don't enjoy it yourself. It's fine to make stuff that you think other people will enjoy, as long as you yourself also, enjoy it and have fun with it and think that it's worth doing. There was a few years where I was building, and didn't even know if I wanted to keep doing it anymore, and I was just doing it because I felt like I needed to prove something, and because I felt like I needed to give back to people for supporting me. I felt like I needed to I felt like there was something that I needed to give because I hadn't done it already. And that's kind of it's a really toxic mindset that can make a lot of people make choices that they regret spending their time doing. And I guess when I look back at a big, wide majority of stuff that I've made, that the memory of that is attached to all those things.
So
So
it's not so much because it's not so much you hate levels because they're bad. It's more so you hate them because of what they remind you of and where you were as a person when you made them.
Yeah, some of them are bad. I'm not gonna lie. There's
I
quite a
mean,
few of them that are
everyone has
straight
those
up bad.
stinkers. Everyone has those stinkers. It's
Yeah.
not really rare. Um, I will say, when you brought up wanting to please your old fans and how it can be a toxic, mindset. Oh my god, I was like, that is literally me because literally this year started with several jobs, but one of them uh was, and this is exactly what it was about. Um, my old friends getting mad because I like abandoned them, which I was like, what? I didn't think I had abandoned them. It was just more so just like my problem was I was so stretched thin because I was trying to meet new people and find people I'd like talking to more than who I was currently talking to. While at the same time, I was trying to please my old friends and be nice to them. So I was stretching myself so thin that it was just impossible for me to do it. So I ended up choosing new friends over old friends because I was like, well, I enjoy talking to my new friends more. I enjoy spending time with them more. So it makes sense to spend time with them more because I enjoy being with them more. And then, it was sort of like my old philosophy of wanting to please my old friends bit me in the ass, and it was like, "Hey, remember us, asshole?" And I was like, "Oh." So that was great, and I'm still dealing with that because it's really hard, especially when you get to the point where you're meeting so many people that it's not possible to talk to hundreds of people in a single day or over a month. It's just not possible because you can't because even if you do that, it's gonna be fake because like you can't have meaningful conversations with so many people on a consistent basis. It's just not possible. You're going to freaking tire yourself out to no end. You grow apart from people. You grow apart from people, whether it be friends or fans or a group of people or whatever. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. It's just it's it's just hard because some of them might be understanding, some of them will hold a grudge, and some of them won't care. It's just hard. It's really hard to deal with, and I really can sympathize with what you're talking about there because I'm going through that right now, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are. I think that there's some stuff that is unsaid that really does need to be said about that, in that if people are going to force you and hold a grudge against you for, not stay, like, I don't really I think that there are some people who have standards for like a committed friendship. I'm making air quotes, but you can't see them, as though it's like similar to a relationship, and that you have to maintain like so much communication and so much time, and it puts a standard on it and it puts a minimum on it. And I think that those are kind of the people where, like, if you voice that you need space, and you voice that you want to try something else, and you voice that your enjoyment of your time on the internet or in general is being, compromised by doing the same thing, and you think that it would benefit from trying new things, then that's a very valid, boundary that you are setting. And if they don't respect that, they might not like actually be your friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they're like, people who are actually going to be your friends are going to respect when you need
Hmm.
space, and they're going to, respect when, you need to go do something else, be somewhere else. And they're like, I've gotten to a point where, like, in private servers, I'll be like super active in a private server for like a month and a half, and then I'll completely die and I'll go be active somewhere else
Dude,
because
that's
because it's
lit.
it, because it's a different group of people.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly
yeah,
me. I literally am in like 50 Discord servers. I'm only active in like two, and it's just like it's because it's like it always happens. Because I remember I joined a more ultra server and I was super active there. I even got mod for the stupidest reason, which is just, oh, one of the mods told me to solve a Rubik's cube in less than 30 seconds, and I got mod. And then I solved my Rubik's cube in less than 30 seconds and got mod, and that was mod for like a week or two, and then I lost it. Not because I abused or anything, but just because I wasn't really active there. Because
yeah,
then, I stopped being active there. And the same thing happened with like Boom Kitty server, even like the GD server, and like the Kino somewhat. Like it just happens because you know eventually it just gets boring talking to the same. Sometimes it gets boring talking to the same people over and over again. But sometimes there's those people you meet that you always, love talking to. But I feel like the problem with what I was doing is because I had already made the decision to move on to to new friends like the year prior, like mid last year. So, and I didn't really communicate that well to them because I literally just went silent on them, and I do feel bad for that because like I didn't even tell my old friends. I just stopped talking to them. And I guess they got the impression that like I abandoned them because I wanted new friends that were more popular than them, which wasn't the case at all. Like a lot of my friends now even aren't very popular. Like sure I'm friends with like Juniper and Blue Skis I talk sometimes, but like a lot of my other friends aren't popular at all. Like I talked to someone named like Customize who sure he streams, but he isn't very well known. Um I talked to like a bunch of other people. I don't really want to. If I tried to list everyone, it would go on for forever. But like, it
Right.
wasn't a case of me looking for more popular people. It's just because I just wanted to talk to people I enjoyed talking to more. I made the mistake of not telling my old friends that. So then later on, they were like, "Oh, you abandoned us for new and more popular friends. How dare you?" And also, one of them decided to hold a mistake I made like early last year against me, which I don't want to bring up, but just I could tell you after, but I don't really want to bring it up now during the interview. But it is,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. I guess we should wrap things up. We've been going for an hour.
Oh, wow.
Generally, I was worried because I wasn't even I had a hard time coming up with questions. I could only come up with like 15 questions, and I still had to skip so many. I still had to skip several questions because we spent so much time talking, which I'm glad about. That's honestly not only what I needed to get through this, but also because it's just a lot more interesting to have a lot to talk about. Because when you can bounce off each other in that way, it just not only does it show that like you can hold a meaningful conversation with someone and that you might be become good friends or that they're just a good person, but it also just means it's a lot more interesting to listen to because you know it's clear they're engaged with what they're talking about. And like if it's fake and you're just like if it's just like, oh, have you felt like you've wanted to quit before? Yeah. Okay. Like if you listen to an interview like that, you're not gonna be interested. You'll be like, Jesus Christ, this is so boring. When
Right.
they're like making up, like when they're like telling stories and like bouncing off each other and comparing experiences, like it's a lot more interesting because you're actually learning stuff and it just feels like it feels real because it is. They're not faking it. It's a genuine conversation, and
Yeah.
that's my aim here. And I feel like we did. I feel like I don't want to take a lot of credit here because you know, you're the person I'm interviewing. You're the one who has to, make, who has to like give all the stories and talk a lot for me to be able to make those connections, which you did a great job with.
Thank you.
Would you say there's anything you want to accomplish in GD in the future? Like anything you want to do? Like even if just community, like do you want to grow a YouTube channel or become a popular streamer or just do something particular? Is there anything like that you want to do?
Um, it's kind of hard to say. I guess with the community, I always feel like I'm not doing enough. You know what I mean? It always feels like there's more that I could be doing in order to accomplish, what it was that I set out to do, like even from the beginning. And I always feel like there's more ways that I can help. And because we're never fully complete with that. We're never fully finished with that endeavor. If we ever feel like we're finished, we're doing something wrong, and we need fresh new perspectives to come in, replace us, and point out what's going on that needs to be done. That's being done wrong or not being done at all in the first place. And so I feel like since I am still here and I am still doing stuff, and I still find a reason to do stuff. I feel like my job isn't complete. And I guess that there are multiple ways that I would consider going about doing things depending on what it is and what need there is to be sort of sufficed. Like every now and then I'll throw out like a scripted little video with like little infographics and little visual demonstrations to maybe teach people a little bit more about like the audio whitelisting system or a crash course on how to use the editor up to 2.1 because once 2.2 comes out and all of that stuff is just going to be the elementary stuff and
Yeah.
2.2's additions are going to be even more like people are going to get lost. So I try to look for like reasons and like things that aren't really being addressed the way that they should be and try to do whatever I can to help with that. And I feel like I've kind of been a little bit more distant than I probably should have been in the past like year or so, past 2 years or so. Part of it being due to college, being like something that takes up a lot of my time and my effort.
That's fair. I mean,
But
I know I edit for Juniper, so I know that she's gearing up for college. She's literally leaving tomorrow as of when we're recording this right now.
yeah,
And I know that Nepesta is also leaving for college really soon. And I know that I could just, like, I've obviously never been to college yet. Like, I'm literally starting my last year of high school right now, literally tomorrow.
mhm,
But I can already tell just like from just the idea of college, it's like you're not going back home. For a lot of people, the college is their home because, you have the dorm at the college that you live in.
yeah,
So, essentially the college is like your life now. Like, you have to depend on the Wi-Fi there. Like, you can't control how good the Wi-Fi is there. That's the college's Wi-Fi. You can't, you don't have as much free time because, there's a lot of college stuff to do. So, it's just, it's really difficult to do stuff there. Sure, it's not like super hard. Like, it isn't like you're working 24/7, but it's just college. It's just, it's like, it's hard to, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, I can understand why college would make it so hard to, be so close to people.
yeah, absolutely. And especially since, college is kind of where people really push you to start taking control over, your own life and your own future and, whatever it is that you want to accomplish. There's a whole lot, there's a whole lot of intensive focus going on there where you kind of you're not really given as much free time to, do whatever it was that you were doing where you were trying to help other people out. Because the intention there is that once you figure out what it is that you're doing, you can do, you could follow your own passions to then help other people. So that's kind of there's a bit of a conflicting philosophy there where you kind of have to spend less time doing what it was that you were already doing to help people, if that's something you were doing at all. But I suppose that then to answer your question, that my ultimate goal is to help until I feel
But you
like
can't
there's
help no more.
nothing, yeah, until I feel like there's nothing left that I can do. Because obviously everyone's lives move on, and I've grown accustomed to a community that may change and no longer exist with the release of this new update, whenever that'll be. So I acknowledge that maybe newer builders, newer mods, newer community figureheads are going to have a lot more of an accurate perspective of the community than I might. And so if they no longer need me, then I will have fulfilled what it is that I need to do. Not necessarily need to do, but what I wanted to do in coming into this, because I wanted to help until I no longer could. And so that's kind of the ultimate unfinished goal so far with the community and with GD.
All right, that's fair, honestly. I know me personally, I want to help people, but more so how I go about it is more so of just like I remember back then I would like do level requests and I would if I got a level I really liked, I would try and push for it to get raid, which has happened before. There's this guy named Bendy Kid who came into one of my streams. I just remember it was New Year's Eve of 2019, I believe, and he sent me this level called Five Nights, and it was a really cool Five Nights at Freddy's themed level. Remember, I sent it to a bunch of mods that I thought was really cool, and it did get rated. And then the sequel came out, and I sent about the mods, a bunch of mods again, and it just took for, it's just like, months went by, and it still wasn't rated, and we just kept
Mhm.
waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally, like, last month, it finally got rated after, like, over a year. So, I feel like I definitely helped with the first level getting rated, because I know a bunch of mods I sent to did send it, and, I just feel happy. Just helping people and seeing that I actually successfully helped them makes me feel happy because I know that I've helped them. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
another way I do that is by trying to entertain people, which is part of the reason why I want to be a YouTuber. Not only because I enjoy doing it, but also because in a way I'm helping people because I'm helping make their day better. I'm helping them, have content to watch that makes them, happy or laugh or, learn something. It's something like that I really enjoy. Um, and also just talking to people. That's the reason why I love talking to people. Not only because it makes me happy, but also because, I know that if I'm talking to someone and we're having a good conversation and we're engaging in like stories and like that, they're probably feeling happy or at least, feeling good. and that in and of itself also makes me feel better. So that's
Yeah,
just something I like to do.
absolutely.
But yeah, thank you for being on today. Thank you for being on this episode. Is there anything you want me to plug in like the description or anything like that, like a YouTube channel or
Um,
Twitter?
I can go ahead and send you like links after the fact.
Oh yeah, that's
But
fair.
yeah, thank you for having me. I've really had a lot of fun with this.
Honestly, the pleasure's all mine. I've been able to interview a lot of really cool people for this series, and I don't intend on stopping with just, people I have easy access to. I plan on eventually, like, my end goal of the series is to try and find a way to interview Rob Top, which I think it's obvious why that's the end goal. That would be, like, the ultimate interview. Because generally there's a lot of questions you could ask him, but, I don't think that's
Yeah.
happening anytime soon, you know? That's more of like an end goal thing, not so much that'd be like a series finale kind of thing. Like that's like the end. Once I've interviewed him, there's nothing else. But yeah, I will say you're probably so far. I mean, so far I've only interviewed 4 people so far. Um, 5 if you include the person I'm interviewing in 2 days. But you're genuinely one of the better the coolest people to talk to. Not just
Thank
because
you.
you're popular, but also because it was just fun to talk to you. So thank you for that. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Check out SirHadoken's links in the description, and he's a cool guy. You should check him out. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.